What would you do if you walked into your matrimonial bed and saw your spouse engaged in an unthinkable betrayal with your nephew? What if the very foundation of your trust crumbled in an instant? Today we delve into the story of Isaac Carter, a man whose life was overturned by the ultimate deception. Imagine dedicating your life to values like loyalty and integrity, only to discover that the person you shared your deepest commitments with was secretly violating them. How far would you go if the walls of your sanctuary echoed with the whispers of betrayal by those closest to you? Could you face the abyss of despair and emerge unchanged? Join us as we unravel a tale of love, lies, and the lethal lengths one might go to when faced with unbearable betrayal. This isn't just a crime story, it's a journey into the heart of darkness that lies within the human soul. How do you cope when everything you believed in is shattered? What happens when trust turns to tragedy? Stay tuned as we explore the harrowing depths of a mind pushed to the brink. Isaac Carter, a 48-year-old pillar of the Los Angeles construction community, faced the unthinkable when he discovered his wife Angela's affair. Angela, not just his wife, but a partner of 25 years, was found in their very bed with Isaac's nephew, Darnell, the same young man Isaac had taken under his wing, hoping to mold him with the same values and skills that he himself cherished. The betrayal cut deeper as it involved family. Darnell wasn't just any employee or acquaintance, he was family, mentored and guided through life's challenges by Isaac himself. What does one do when the lessons of integrity and trust taught are thrown back with such disregard? As Isaac grappled with this betrayal, the questions that haunted him were not just about the act itself, but what it symbolized. The trust and bond that he thought were unbreakable had been torn apart, not by strangers, but by those he loved and nurtured. What happens to a man when his sanctuary of home and family becomes a theater of deception and heartbreak? Angela, a 43-year-old respected judge, and Isaac had painted the picture of a stable and enduring marriage to the world. They shared a bond that seemed to defy the odds, despite the deep, private pain of being unable to have children, a shared dream that remained unfulfilled. This childlessness added layers of unspoken sorrow to their relationship, a tender wound that never quite healed. Their union, built on mutual respect and a rich history of shared experiences, now faced its greatest test. Angela, known for her wisdom and fairness in the courtroom, had her judgment called into question in the most personal way possible. The irony was not lost on Isaac, who had always seen Angela's judicial role as a parallel to their marital harmony. Balanced, just, and dignified. As Isaac processed the reality of his wife's infidelity, he was forced to re-examine everything he knew about their life together. How could the person he admired for her integrity and commitment in the public eye betray their private vows? This contradiction was not just a shock, it was a recalibration of his entire understanding of love, trust. As the years went by, Isaac observed a growing emotional distance between himself and Angela, a chasm that seemed to widen with each passing day. The intimacy that had once been the cornerstone of their marriage began to diminish, leaving their daily interactions feeling increasingly detached and mechanical. Conversations that once flowed effortlessly were now sparse and functional, limited to the necessities of their busy lives. Isaac, ever the optimist, tried to convince himself that this was just another ebb in the natural flow of a long-term relationship. Yet, beneath his hopeful exterior, there lurked a gnawing unease that something fundamental had shifted in their bond. The laughter and warmth that used to fill their home had given way to a silence that was both loud and heavy. The realization that their relationship was no longer the refuge it once had been troubled Isaac deeply. He wondered if the absence of children had slowly eroded some vital connective tissue between them. or if the demanding nature of Angela's career as a judge had drawn her away, not just physically, but emotionally. Each day brought with it a sense of walking on eggshells, of living alongside a stranger wearing the face of the woman he had loved for decades. How had they arrived at this point? And more importantly, how could they bridge the ever-widening gap that threatened to engulf their marriage entirely? One evening, while searching for a misplaced item in their shared bedroom, Isaac's heart leapt as his eyes fell upon a small, seemingly innocuous object that would unravel the threads of his reality. A positive pregnancy test. For a fleeting moment, after years of trying, after accepting the silent sorrow of childlessness, this symbol of new life sparked a surge of hope that perhaps their prayers had been answered. But as the initial shock subsided, confusion and suspicion crept in. Why had Angela kept such monumental news a secret? Wasn't this the moment they had both dreamed of sharing? The joy quickly soured as doubts began to cloud his mind, the joyous discovery now tainted by the mystery of its concealment. Isaac's thoughts raced as he pieced together their recent interactions, her increased privacy, her unexplained absences, the distance that had formed like a chasm between them. Could it be that the child was not his? The thought was like a vice tightening around his chest. He needed answers, but with Angela not yet home, Isaac was left alone with his swirling thoughts, each one darker than the last. The night air felt heavier as Isaac awaited Angela's return, the positive pregnancy test burning a hole in the fabric of their matrimonial life. How could he confront her? What would her explanation be? Each tick of the clock was a reminder of the profound shift that was about to occur in their lives. Driven by a need for clarity and perhaps, deep down, a hope to dispel his darkest fears, Isaac decided to visit the construction site he owned, a lawn he had often taken Angela to, showing off the skeletons of future homes he was building. It was supposed to be a quiet evening, a chance for Isaac to distract himself with the tangible solidity of his work until he could speak with Angela. However, what he found upon arriving was a scene that would forever scar the canvas of his life. Through the dim light of the setting sun, Isaac's eyes locked onto a sight that ground his world to a halt. Angela, entwined in an intimate embrace with Darnell, his own nephew, the young man he had mentored, brought into his business and home, sharing a moment of betrayal amidst the very foundations Isaac had laid with his own hands. The shock of the discovery sent a jolt of adrenaline surging through Isaac's veins. His heart pounded in his chest as he watched, hidden by the shadows, the two most important people in his life dismantling his trust in real time. Anger bubbled up inside him, a primal force that blurred the edges of his vision and thought. The intimacy of their embrace, in a place that represented his life's work, made the betrayal unbearably poignant. Without a sound, Isaac stepped back into the shadows, his mind racing as he retreated from the site. The image of Angela and Darnell together seared into his memory, fueling a violent reaction that would soon spiral out of control. The foundations of his life, his love, and his trust had not just cracked, they had crumbled into dust. The betrayal at the construction site was a catalyst, pushing Isaac beyond the brink of reason. Consumed by rage, he returned to the site under the cloak of night, the very place where his dreams and trust had been shattered. With each step he took toward the building, the weight of his fury and despair grew heavier. Inside, the tools of his trade, once symbols of creation and stability, now took on a darker purpose. Isaac's hands found a crowbar, its cold, heavy metal grounding his swirling thoughts in a grim resolve. Moving with a mechanical precision that belied his inner turmoil, he confronted Angela and Darnell, who were still there, lost in their secret world. The sight of them together unleashed his pent-up fury, and with a heart-rending cry of betrayal, Isaac swung the crowbar. The impact was devastating. Angela and Darnell, caught off guard, had no time to react as Isaac, driven by a tidal wave of pain and anger, struck again and again. When his rage finally spent itself, he was left standing over their lifeless bodies, the silence echoing loudly in the empty construction site. The aftermath was a blur of shock and numb realization. Isaac, now a man transformed by violence, methodically wrapped the bodies in heavy-duty plastic. His actions were deliberate as he mixed and poured wet concrete over them in the basement, entombing the evidence of his dark deed beneath the very foundations of a home he had been building. As the concrete hardened, so did the finality of what he had done, sealing away his wife and nephew in a chilling makeshift grave. In the grim silence that followed, Isaac was alone with the magnitude of his actions, the weight of his despair nearly crushing. The air was thick with the dust of dry concrete and the metallic scent of blood. There, in the dim light of the basement, realization dawned upon him like a cruel sunrise. He had not only ended 2 lives, but had also shattered his own beyond recognition. With trembling hands, Isaac reached for his phone, his fingers numb as they dialed 911. The voice on the other end was calm, a stark contrast to the storm raging within him. 911, what's your emergency? The dispatcher asked. Words escaped him in a halting confession. I've killed them. My wife and my nephew. Please, just come. His voice, once firm and confident, was now nothing more than a whisper of defeat. The wait for the police to arrive felt like an eternity. Each minute stretched, filled with the echoes of his actions and the ghosts of his decisions. When the officers finally arrived, they found a scene that was as chilling as it was tragic. Isaac sat on the cold, unfinished floor of the basement, surrounded by the silence of the concrete tomb he had created. He offered no resistance as he was taken into custody, his spirit as broken as the lives he had taken. The subsequent police investigation quickly uncovered the horrifying truth hidden beneath the wet concrete. The community, which had once respected and admired Isaac, was left reeling from the shock of the brutal crime that had unfolded in their midst. Isaac's trial was a somber affair, marked by an air of inevitability. As he stood before the judge, his once proud stature was now bent under the weight of his guilt. With hollow eyes, he pleaded guilty to the charges laid against him, 2 counts of first-degree murder. The courtroom, usually abuzz with the murmur of spectators and legal arguments, was eerily silent as Isaac expressed his profound remorse. "I am sorry," he uttered, his voice barely audible. "No amount of regret can undo what I have done, but I am truly sorry." His words hung heavy in the air, a stark admission of his failings and the pain he had caused. The remorse he showed was palpable, yet it did little to mitigate the severity of his crimes. The prosecution argued that the methodical manner in which Isaac concealed the bodies, coupled with his calculated approach to the killings, pointed to a clear case of premeditation. His actions, they contended, were those of a man who had not only committed a heinous act of violence, but had also meticulously planned to hide it. The judge, while acknowledging Isaac's remorse, underscored the premeditated nature of the crimes. "While I see a man before me who is remorseful," the judge declared, "I must also see the man who committed these acts with deliberate intention." With that, Isaac was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, a decision that reverberated through the courtroom and beyond. As Isaac was led away, the finality of the sentence was a sobering reminder of the 2 lives lost and the 1 irreparably broken. The community was left to grapple with the unsettling knowledge that a man they once admired for his integrity had descended into a darkness from which there was no return. Revelation of the crime sent shockwaves through the Los Angeles community, a place where Angela had served as a respected judge and where Isaac was known as a principal builder. The news of Angela's murder, compounded by her high-profile career and the betrayal by her husband and nephew, gripped the city with a mix of horror and disbelief. Angela had been a beacon of justice, her decisions from the bench impacting many lives, always striving to balance the scales with fairness and compassion. Her untimely death not only robbed the legal community of a dedicated servant, but also shook their trust in the very foundations of personal and professional relationships. The fact that the betrayal and subsequent murders involved family deepened the tragedy. Community members struggled to reconcile the Isaac they knew, the man who built homes meant to harbor families and create memories, with the one who had dismantled his own family in such a brutal way. The juxtaposition of Isaac's role as a mentor to Darnell with his final actions was particularly poignant and unsettling. As news vans and reporters converged on the scene and the story unfolded in the media, the public grappled with the narrative of a family that appeared idyllic on the outside but was evidently fracturing behind closed doors. The community mourned not just the loss of life, but also the shattering of an image of a family they had admired. The case became a somber topic of discussion about trust, betrayal, and the hidden struggles within seemingly perfect lives. The site of the murders, an unfinished construction project in the heart of Los Angeles, stood as a haunting testament to the tragedy that had unfolded within its incomplete walls. Over time, the skeletal structure, intended to be a sanctuary for future families, became a stark reminder of the lives shattered by Isaac's actions. The once bustling construction site now lay silent, its stillness echoing the community's grief in the irrevocable loss it had suffered. As weeds began to encroach upon the abandoned project, the unfinished building served as a chilling visual metaphor for the unfinished lives of Angela and Darnell, and the broken man Isaac had become. The site, now avoided by locals, turned into a grim landmark, a place where whispers of betrayal and loss lingered in the air, a constant reminder of the thin line between love and hatred, sanity and madness. This tragic story leaves us with unsettling questions about the nature of trust and the depths of human emotions. What do you think drives a person to cross the line from love to lethal rage? Could anything have been done differently to prevent this tragedy? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're captivated by the complexities of human behavior and the dark tales that emerge from within our very communities, don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into true crime stories. Each episode aims to not only tell a story, but also to understand the human psyche and the societal pressures that lead to unthinkable actions.